Good morning,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Jackson.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Thank you so much for joining me
Thank you for having me.
for Conversations with Commissioner Sanders. I don't want to say that you might be one of my favorite departments, but I'd get in trouble.
Yeah.
There are reasons for that, which I'm sure you know.
hmm
But I am Caroline Sanders, Commissioner for District 4. Um, and this is, I don't even know what number this is. I started these conversations because it's hard for me to reach my constituents without doing expensive mailings. And this way they're able to get information about other duly elected offices within our county and departments that, they may have a touch with, and just to gather information. And they can go out on YouTube and access it at any time. So we're not
hmm
live to them, but we are recording, and then um, Tabitha will edit it and make sure we didn't do any faux pas, and
hmm
then put it out there.
Make us look
So
good. Okay, yeah. Make me look good,
yes, yes.
Tabitha.
So having said all that, Derrick, it's a pleasure to have you on. You are not new to me in any capacity. We've probably known each other about 20 years.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm excited that you have joined another area of the county. You've been with the county in several different capacities. And so I'm going to stop rambling, and
Mhm.
I'm going to let you introduce who you are and what does the Racial Equity Office do.
Yes, I'm Derrick Jackson. My title now is the Racial Equity Officer of Washtenaw County. So I have the great privilege of really taking what the commissioner set as the charge of the Racial Equity Office and kind of putting it into action. But just for those who haven't met me, yeah, I've been with the county for 20 years, a little bit over 20 years. I started out working with homeless kids at Ozone House, really got passionate about policy work because I love that work with kids, but it was like, the system, something was happening, right? We were helping a kid every day, but yet there was another kid, another family coming for services. And so I went to work for Larry Kestenbaum, the current county clerk, when he first got elected. So I ran the elections office. I then went to work for Jerry Clayton, the elected sheriff, 4 years after that. So I was there for 16 years, just retired and left the sheriff's office this past December. And then I came over to this current role that I'm in, and I'm super excited about it. Um, so what the Racial Equity Office does, I think, is really about how do we identify on three levels? How do we work on the individual level, like working with our staff who are county employees across the various departments? How do we focus on helping them change, to learn, to understand what equity is, and to provide really good service in an equitable way? It's also about the institution, which is county government. So how are we helping our departments understand the policies, the resolutions, the practices, how we're spending county dollars, how we're hiring people, promoting folks. So it's really looking from an institutional perspective to make sure we are welcoming, inviting, and we are treating everyone equitably. And then the third piece is really strategically, these larger systemic issues that we might look at. So I often say that in Washtenaw County, we are still one of the most economically segregated counties in all of America. So from a structural standpoint, we would ask ourselves the question of like, why is that? We have great resources, great people who care. We're a giving community. I'm raising my family here because I love the community, but we still have these challenges here around equity. So race in Washtenaw County does matter. It shouldn't matter, but it still does. And there are disparities across many, many different lanes. And I'll just say the last piece, and then I'll be quiet and stop rambling, is that, when I think about it as a black man in Washtenaw County, I am likely to live 7 years less than my white counterpart in the office next to me. Just that statement for people in Washtenaw County, as a black man, I'm likely to live 7 years less. My life expectancy is 7 years less than my white counterpart. That's significant, right? I know people know that we have a housing crisis in Washtenaw County, but I don't hear people talking about roughly 80% of the homeless families in Washtenaw County are black families. And over 90% of them are the head of household as black women. So our homelessness problem and crisis, we have a black family, black women kind of an issue, but we're not talking about it in that way. So that's what equity is. How do we talk about the realities and then help to deal with some of those problems in an equitable way?
And I want to give credit where credit is due, because this office was created before I became a commissioner. I actually attended the public interviews for the previous department head, and the other two candidates. And I thought that was interesting. I also thought it was cutting edge, that the commissioners that were installed at that time recognized that we had such racial divides
Yeah.
here in the county, and that they needed to be addressed
Yep.
if we were going to continue to promote ourselves as, this liberal, democratic minded county that cares for everyone
Yeah.
and wants everyone to have an opportunity.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us some of the things that your office has dominion over? You're
Yeah.
sort of an umbrella office, right?
Yep.
That was the intent.
Yep.
So now I will say the intent was somewhat delayed because we had this little thing called COVID,
COVID. Yes. Yes. I was
that
going to
that
reference that for
interrupted.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about that a little bit.
I think, one of the things that was appealing back, because I went to the same, kind of early conversations around the office. I was thrilled that there was the ability and the folks really want to push for an equity office. And what the equity officer, my role now, was really charged with. Any resolution that a department is going to submit to the county commissioners, uh, on that resolution, there's a piece now that says the impact on equity. So every resolution comes across my desk, and we view it from an equity lens. How we're funding, like I said before, how we're hiring, what new programs are going to be created. So every single decision that you as a commissioner are going to make goes through this process where there's an equity lens. And that's one of the things that I'm fascinated about, is making sure we do our due diligence to have impact and input on this will exacerbate inequities, or it might really, really help, or it's just neutral. It's not really doing anything. And so for commissioners to have that understanding as you make the really important decisions around county government. So that's one thing that I don't think that people see from an external perspective, but is a really important issue. So resolutions, any new policies or policy changes, practices. The Eastern Washtenaw Community Rec Center is a project that I'm just so excited and passionate about. But I'll give you an example of like what the equity office and kind of role is. That is a beautiful concept that is going to change a particular neighborhood. But how do we do it in a way to make sure that those young people who live in that vicinity, who are eager to jump in that swimming pool in the summer, who want to play on those basketball courts, who want to go to those tutoring classes, how do we make sure that they actually have access to that building, so that we in county government don't invest millions of dollars in a beautiful physical space, but it creates a divide so that people who can look through the window and see the pool, but they can't have access to it. And so it may sound like, well, that's an easy thing, but we got to talk about culture. We got to talk about how we hire folks to run that facility and all the nuances in the design. So that's a part of, again, the things behind the scenes that people don't see, that the equity office is a part of. I will say that COVID did derail us, right? Like, so there was a equity policy that said, like, here's what you're going to focus on. But then COVID hit, and the equity office, prior to me being here, became like the epicenter of how we were getting the resources out of county government's hands to the people to really help. And I know COVID's been a couple of years removed now, but we literally still, 2 weeks from now, we will pay our last invoice for our COVID related contracts. So although COVID is done with, or not fully done with, but is, the crisis is behind us. We still have been really doing a lot of the work because of the ripple effects of COVID. So we're just now getting back to our original intent, which is some of the things that I've described here before. So I know people do ask us. I will say, and I know you love this one, but also the MSSI, right? That Mobile Support Service Initiative, um, which is the big blue bus that people see, that RV. It is about taking services from the buildings into the community, and not just our services in county government, but nonprofits, right? Helping those nonprofits get their services directly in the hands of the people. And so since I started, we really tried to use that thing. I tell everybody, we're going to make that thing invaluable, because I think it's an invaluable tool that if I can take the clerk's office and you don't have to drive from Manchester to downtown Ann Arbor to get a birth certificate, but I can bring that birth certificate to you. Like, we haven't done that yet, but that's one of the things on the to-do list. And then, of course, we're doing the town halls with commissioners, so we can roll that vehicle into any neighborhood so that you can talk directly to the folks that you represent. That's a different way of closing the gap between the people and government.
Absolutely. And I did not pay you to bring up those two.
That's right. You did not.
But since you did, I've gotten some, I'm going to say, not to my face, but behind my back, comments about, why am I so invested in the creation of the East Side Community Parks and Recs Center. And my first answer to them is, I literally live east of US 23.
Mm-hmm.
My district stradders. And so, but also I have spent the last 36 years living mostly in Ypsilanti Township, and Pittsfield Township. And I know that center, I'll borrow a phrase from Melvin Parsons, which is, it's going to change the soil.
Yeah.
And many people may not know, but for probably 10 years, I served landlord tenant papers in Sycamore Meadows. I was out there. I was encountering the people. I was dealing with them. And so I know what they need out there. And there's no reason that they should not have the same high quality access and services as the people that utilize the Mary Lou Center.
Yeah.
None. Yeah. And that means that those positions should be part of AFSCME. It should not be run by some other entity so that it is a less than. It should be equal. And those residents pay the same tax dollars as the residents who utilize the Mary Lou Center. Yeah. And I'm adamant that we are not going to allow that center not to take place. I won't say we, our electeds in Lansing delivered a phenomenal $30 million. $30 million. They made sure we had that money in order to make this happen. And the residents are deserving of it. And I'm glad that it is a part of the, that the Racial Equity Office is engaged.
Yeah.
And I've just added myself to all of the committees for Parks and Recs. So we're going to make sure that this is moving along, and that I'm going to just be flat out honest, and that the ugly racial undercurrent does not win.
Yeah.
Because there is an undercurrent. They put a different face on it. But we need to make sure that we're taking care of all of our residents equally. And that leads into the MSSI, which was designed to service the east side and the west side of the county equally, because even though demographically they may look different, they have the same struggles.
Yeah.
Absolutely the same struggles. Financial, logistical, all of those things. And so the MSSI was created to service both, no matter what your color is. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what your economic status is. It matters that you are a resident of Washtenaw County and you are deserving. So
if I could just say a couple things about, so for the rec center, for folks who may ask about the rec center, I've done a lot of work around community violence intervention over the last decade or so. And one of the things we started to really talk about was if you look at any place that's really dealt with street level violence, guns, shootings, when they're successful at it, yes, they have a range of things that they do. But one thing that they have is a physical, safe space for kids in certain communities to get off the street, to have positive interactions with adults. So the community center is not just about fun and games and playing basketball with kids. I say it's a lifesaver. It's a life changer. I grew up in Inkster, and I remember with the rec center, there was only 2 blocks from my house, when we could go into that physical space, meet with people and adults, and we had a safe space off the streets. So I know from personal experience, it's more than just playing games with kids. It's actually life changing. So, and it's also regional. So, we've even talked about who's going to utilize that space. Yes, it's in a particular area or in the neighborhood. It straddles Ypsi Township and Superior Township, but that is not the only folks that come. Just like Mary Lou Murray, right? For years, I traveled from Ypsi to Mary Lou Murray as a county employee, and I know that folks from other parts of the county, Pittsfield, will travel to this nice, beautiful new facility. And I'll just say, at least the beginning pieces of it, the renderings, it's going to be phenomenal. And I told someone yesterday, if I have to, Caroline, we're gonna be out there together. I got extra hammers. We're gonna build that thing. That thing is not fail. We cannot allow it to fail. It has to happen.
And my hat as a single mother, now helping raise a grandson, um, in this climate, this political climate that we're having to deal with from DC on down, it is crucial that we have childcare at that center,
Mm,
that we have a kitchen at that center, that it is a intergenerational one-stop
mm,
shop. And I stress the intergenerational. We've got seniors in that community. They need a place that they can get to, that they can access without having to drive, 10 miles to a location. Um, and there's no reason.
yeah,
There's no reason that
yeah,
people can come up with that makes any sense why uh, that community and those residents are not entitled. I'm gonna
yeah,
use that word. Are not
yeah.
entitled to the best that we have to offer at any other center in our county.
Yep.
And so it's a place that will interrupt violence just by its existence,
Yep.
just
You
because
know,
people have a safe place to go.
and I was just on part of this conversation with you with Beth Gibbons from the Resiliency Office, and we were talking about the center because it's also going to be a resilience hub, right? Like, to say we have natural disasters, power outages, and folks from far away in Washtenaw County will be able to use that space when they're in need. So that's the other part about it. I think it is a community and rec center, but you're right, and all the things that it could encompass and will encompass is pretty significant for all of Washtenaw County, not just a smaller geographic area.
Hmm. And we're sitting on enough land that I could see, Beth's office being able to do education courses. And,
Yeah,
there's no reason that we couldn't have a farm out there. We have all of the pieces, right? And it's a beautiful piece of property. So I'm looking forward to it. And I'm glad that you are in this fight.
it has to
Um,
happen.
yeah. And I want to also let you know that I really appreciate how you've jumped in with both feet related to making sure that the MSSI is pushed out
Hmm.
and that everyone has an opportunity to experience it and utilize it.
And
So
it's funny because we have, we've done a lot of events, and when the driver comes back and she's like, Derrick, I had the kids chasing me down, asking where the popsicles were, right? Or where the pizza is. And I just chuckle at it. But what it's becoming is it's becoming a physical symbol for where you can go to get services and help. We've been posted up at Arbor One for months now, as they were going through some of their challenges, and so being able to connect attorneys in the neighborhood with entire neighborhoods who were being, asked to leave because the whole property was condemned. And when you sit there and you listen and they show you on their phone the pictures of what some of the, mess that they're having to live in is, and you can see for the first time they get to talk to an attorney about that, that's life changing for people. So I don't want to underestimate the power and the impact that the vehicle is actually having on real challenges in people's lives.
absolutely. And I think the sexiest thing about that vehicle is the wheelchair lift.
Yes. I mean,
Because
it really
it
it's a
truly
county building on
encompasses
wheels.
that everyone is welcome and
Yeah.
everyone can be served.
Yep. It's a county building on wheels. It really, really is. And folks can do a lot of things on there. So if people are watching and you have an organization, a program, or a project, this is not just the equities office or the county's vehicle. You can rent it for free. And so we can come set up at your events with our staff, but you can also, as your organization, utilize that vehicle at one of your events. We transport it there. We make sure it's there. So it's been used by, actually, it's been used more by external entities than it has by internal county departments or commissioners by far.
So what other things tell us a little bit about your staff and what are some of the things that, coming into this role, you have aspirations to see happen.
Yeah. Yeah, so right now the stat, so it's myself, Akeem is the person who does like our community engagement, outreach efforts. He was also the main person doing all the community priority fund, ARPA dollars with some of the human service organizations that were working to help us around COVID. And then Miss Victoria, she's our driver of the MSSI, and she can drive the heck out of that vehicle. But she's also great with people. She's been around Washtenaw County her entire life, so she just knows a lot of people and is a really good ambassador for equity work. And then we have Cammie, who is dual duty, right? She works in county administration, but she also helps with some of the administrative functions here in the racial equity office. And then one of the things we've just started to do more and more is we want this place to be a feeder system for kind of young minds. And so having interns, work study folks that are coming through the office to learn about county government and then get connected into, yes, what equity work is, but really just what government and public service, how great of a career that can be. And so that's the army, the little army we have internally. But really, what I hope that the equity office doesn't become is just a one-off program where they do equity. So really what we're trying to do is just partner, collaborate, and co-create with departments and with community groups for both internal and external change. And so that's a part of what we've been doing, is being a convener. So there's a couple things that we really focus on. We have the Advisory Council on Reparations. And so there's a group that is looking at historical harms in Washtenaw County. And because there hasn't been a lot of history written about Washtenaw County in this way, I'm super excited just about the historical perspective of what it's going to show us about Washtenaw County and our history. So that's one big thing that we work on. We're part of the Criminal Justice Collaborative Council and all these subcommittees that always has equity at the forefront of the conversations. But I'll give you one that I think is really important that hasn't happened yet, but we're really interested in. And this is a strategic change effort. So something called the Youth Assessment and Resource Center. If you look at the map of young people who are in the criminal justice system or heading into the criminal justice system, there aren't a lot of off-ramps. Now, I worked in the adult system for years. We created a ton of off-ramps for folks who were about to enter the system, who were coming out of the system, how you can employ them. And it really started to change the impact of the justice system. We want to replicate that on the youth side. And so one of the programs that we're really exploring and potentially standing up is the Youth Assessment and Resource Center. And it becomes a place for a parent, the kid themselves, a police officer, the courts. If you have a kid who's on the pathway, how they might get connected to this center to be a doorway to get them connected to the right services that they need. It's not a magic wand, but it's something different than we've ever had in Washtenaw County. And I think it could be pretty tremendous in changing the actual trajectory of the juvenile justice system in Washtenaw. That's a huge equity concern, and the question is just about the criminal justice system here in Washtenaw County. And there are answers and solutions. And so that's one that we've been really exploring and utilizing. I could talk forever. There are a laundry list. We want to do something called the Legacy Project. We're working with a group called Black Kids Travel and Washtenaw My Brother's Keeper. And it's the idea that our young people should be able to go through, learn about their own families, their own ancestral through genealogical research. And we have some phenomenal folks, professionals in that space, and they're learning about that. But then we want to take those kids on an ancestral journey. We want to take them back to the continent of Africa, and there's healing in that. The first time that I learned about my ancestors and who they were, it changed my perspective of what slavery meant. These weren't passive people. They were fighting for freedom. They established something, and they are and were the people who set it up for me to be the Derrick Jackson that lives in Washtenaw County and is raising my family. So once I understood that, it changed my whole perspective on who I am. And so we want to be able to offer that. We have some young people, they don't even know their own biological family, let alone their ancestors, and the strength of what it means to be living here in Washtenaw County. So there's a laundry list of things that we are standing up, all with the intention of making sure people understand that yes, race has implications in Washtenaw County, but it doesn't have to be a negative. Your zip code doesn't have to dictate your outcomes. And I think in Washtenaw County, we really value that. Like, we are a caring community. And so we're just trying to illuminate that and then create mechanisms to change it.
That's exciting because I've had some experiences lately with church members, youth, that the system has not been interested in serving because the trouble that they've gotten into wasn't egregious enough,
Yeah.
which is absurd to me. And when it's escalating, like you said, and they still don't want to get involved, you know, why should we wait until we see that they're spiraling and not try and intervene so that it doesn't get to be, you know, a gun involved or,
Yeah.
you know, sort of thing. And um our youth need to be taken care of the same way our seniors are being taken care of.
And I've had
Because
many a parent call, many, right? Because my previous work was at the sheriff's office. So I would get this call all the time where they'd be like, I love my child. They're in this middle school, early high school. I'm losing control. What can I do? And I remember a time when the answer for many people was get them involved in the juvenile justice system, because that's where the services are. We have to do better in Washtenaw County. And the fact that some kids think that the most influential adult in their life is an employee of the youth detention center says good things about the staff at the detention center, but I think it calls into question, why does a kid have to get into the detention center to get those services, to have that? How about those interactions be happening prior to? And so that's really some of the work that we're also focused on.
have you encountered, has your office encountered pushback from internal departments about your involvement in things that they may want to be proposing? Not
Not yet. I
calling
think
anybody out, but I'm just
we
saying, you know,
yeah,
people
yeah.
like things the way they've always been.
They do. I think county government, any large system, right? Like, change is difficult, right? And that's why I said it's not an overnight thing. But I would say I think we're still in our honeymoon period, right? I've only been here since December, and I know a lot of the staff because I've been around county government for 20 years. So I think that they know how I operate. Is like, it isn't always all right, we're gonna do this, boom. Sometimes you got to do that, but sometimes this is like, all right, we got to co-create and learn this, and here's why. I can get you to buy into something. I can make it sound pretty, and you're like, I'm buying into that. But I want you to commit to it, right? So when I'm not here, when ain't nobody watching, you fully committed. Because if you buying into it, when someone comes along selling something better, you just gonna buy into that. So it's a slower process. It's an intentional process. But I think we are building a culture within county government that really values equity. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why I say that. Whether it was community mental health, I think public health, even parks, OCED. There's a lot of county departments that have gone and done their own things around equity, hired a consultant, got some staff who are really trying to push equity work. And so there's a lot of good work already happening in county government. We just want to, kind of coalesce that work and make sure we're all moving in the right direction. Now, I'd be naive if I said there's been no pushback. The reality is some people don't understand equity. When you mention racial equity, they shun it. They think that that is othering them, right? It's like, oh, this isn't for us. I say all the time, I think one of the groups that have been impacted the most in a positive way are white women when we talk about equity. And so it isn't just what people sometimes want to say, it's about black folks and it's only black folks and you only do this. It's about something that's for everyone. We talk about targeted universalism. That yes, we target things in certain areas because people are struggling, but it universally is impacting everyone. How do we lift everybody up to a certain level, not necessarily taken away from one group and given to another? How does everyone have the same opportunities? And I'll say this until I'm blue in the face. Again, is it acceptable that my life expectancy, because I'm a black person who lives in Washtenaw County, is it acceptable that it's 7 years less? Is it acceptable that the child death rate amongst black women is higher than their white counterparts? No, it is unacceptable. And I think everybody can wrap their heads around that. So I think it's about how you talk about it and how you do it. So right now we haven't had a lot of major pushback, but also we haven't yet pushed some really major initiatives. So it will be interesting when we get to the table to say, like, all right, assessment center, like now we want to push it. Are they going to be folks that try to find ways that we shouldn't do that? So we're going to get the recreation center over the finish line. So we haven't had pushbacks on those things, but it will be interesting to see what happens when the rubber meets the road.
So if a resident were to inquire, okay, so it's the racial equity office.
Yeah.
Does that mean that there is surveying or analysis on the part of the office of the equity or lack of equity that we have in departments throughout the county? Because we, unfortunately, but it's real, it's nothing that I'm making up, we have areas where there is no diversity.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
And it's been like that for decades. And there's no interest in changing it.
Yep.
But you can't improve the lives of our residents if they don't have opportunities in these various departments.
Yeah.
Is that something that would or was the expectation of the creators of this office be done or be reviewed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, so I think so there was a round of assessments that was done. I think when changeover happened with my position, so there's still some work to be done around what do you do with the data. And now I think it needs to be updated. But yes, that is a charge of the Racial Equity Office, is to assess not only the departments as a whole, but even the individual programming, how we're funding, how we're sending money out from county government to community. So assessing all of those pieces. And beyond assessment, how do we make sure that what we're doing is not exacerbating the problem, and what mechanisms might we have to really improve things over time? So yes, that is absolutely a part of the charge and the mission of the Racial Equity Office, is to make sure that those departments. Now, I'll be honest, it's not easy and it does not happen overnight. These are issues that are systemic and structural that have been going on for generations. So I think it's unrealistic to think that and since the existence and creation of the equity office, we could change all of that, or in my time here, even a couple of years from now, that everything is going to be perfect. I don't think so. But I do think we in Washtenaw County government, are on a much better trajectory than most government institutions around us, because I tell people, even in our current climate, we haven't changed a single sentence, word, or comma in our commitment to equity. We are thinking about how we evolve and continue to get better and do this work, but we're committed to it. And I think that should say something to the residents in your district, but also of Washtenaw County, of like, the commissioners are committed to this work. And as an agency, we're committed to it. Now we got to really, dig our heels in and do the work. But what you asked, like that is definitely a major part of what our charge is going to be.
Okay. I would love to see some sort of convening by way of a conference or something in the future that would invite all sectors
Yep.
to be in a room together and to be willing to face and recognize, the inequities that we do see and live here in the county, but not as a gotcha sort of thing, but as a, okay, let's acknowledge it, and now let's talk about how do we grow,
Yeah.
how do we make changes.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting that out there,
No, I smile because I think one of the things we would love to be able to create is the Washtenaw Equity Network, where we have a network of folks who are doing this work in various institutions and government institutions around our county, so that we are coordinating those efforts and really pushing Washtenaw County as a whole forward. I do want to say just a couple of quick pieces. We investigate any staff member or even community member who interacts with the Department of Washtenaw County government if they have a complaint or concern about an equity issue. It's a part of our charge as the office to investigate those. And so we have investigated both internal complaints and external complaints. That's a part of what we do on a regular basis. It's also a part of what we do to train staff. So since I've been here, we haven't done a ton of the training yet, but we're developing what the curriculum will look like. We have our equity liaisons. There are liaisons from almost every department in county government that are assigned and are very interested in being the liaisons. Like, how are we learning and then taking that information back to the departments? And they're phenomenal because they're content experts on their department policies and procedures. And so they're coming up with things that I haven't thought of or our office hasn't even seen, because they know the everyday inner workings, where they're like, Derrick, we should really look at this from an equity lens. And so we're really using those liaisons in a very different way as well. So I just wanted to mention those few things for your constituents to know there are some really tangible things internal to county government that you may not hear about or read about, but they're actually helping to change how government is functioning.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I just want you to expound on the definition of equity as we're using it. Because when you say that, people tend to gravitate straight to it's a black or white issue. And it's not that. It's equity could be me as a single parent.
Yeah.
In a community that, has more married couples than single parents, right? It could be that I'm a foster child that didn't have the same opportunities. It could be that I have a physical, mental, or emotional disability. So just kind of shed a little light on that, because people are conditioned to be, sort of narrow thinking sometimes, not maliciously, but
Yeah, and I think the way we talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, has been co-opted to be something negative, right? It's not something to be scared of. And you just listed off a few things that I think are really important. So I'll just give you some real examples. So from county government kind of experience of what equity can represent. So we have to make a decision around fixing the elevators versus doing something else. And when you look at the elevators compared to whatever else there might be in facilities, you say, well, where's the equity issue? Well, we know that if our elevators don't work, certain folks can't get to the floor upstairs to talk to the prosecutor's office or the public defender in certain buildings, right? So there's an equity issue even in what we dedicate money to and resources of facilities. And that's not a racial equity issue. That might be around ability challenges. There's issues around or talking about how we pay interns. So that's not a racial equity issue. That's also about an economic issue. There are things around climate change and kind of climate migration, and why people from certain parts of the world, based on the warming climate and natural disasters, are migrating to other parts, including Washtenaw County and the Washtenaw County area. So we are talking about what migration and immigration looks like. And so there are many other ways to look at when we talk about equity. My work at the sheriff's office really was all around equity related to those who are involved in the legal system. Just because you have something on your criminal history, does that mean you are never able to be redeemed or work in county government? Of course not. We've banned the box, so you don't ask if someone has a felony. But have we truly got to the point where we're willing to hire and accept folks that have a criminal history? Those are all equity issues, and none of those that I just listed or the ones you listed had anything specifically to do with race. And so we are the Racial Equity Office, and that is a part of our official charge. But we also do focus on all these other equity issues, and how. And again, part of it is just understanding it, talking about it, understanding what our role is, and then making changes to make sure people have opportunity. So when I think of equity, I think of opportunity. No matter who you are and where you live in Washtenaw County, you should have opportunity to thrive, and your zip code and what you look like, your gender should not dictate or limit your ability to thrive in Washtenaw County.
I wanted to add that part because it it does have a narrow sort of
Mm-hmm.
connotation to it,
Mm-hmm.
and it shouldn't be narrow,
That's right.
right? But we do have to always explain it,
Yeah.
which can, take sucks the air out of the room sometimes. So I don't know what else I have for you, Derrick. I appreciate this conversation. I hope that my residents enjoy it as well. Well, not just my residents. I mean, it's open for anybody to listen to. And I hope that people do to help educate themselves and um, just know all of the wonderful things that we're doing in the county and also some of the things that we still need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's perfect, right?
Yep.
But I do think that we are I don't know if I like this term, but I don't have a better one. I think that we are progressive
Mm-hmm.
in trying to have an open mind and recognize when things are broken and when they need to be fixed or thrown out, and something else new needs to be created. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
super excited that we have a racial equity office and the role that it has to play. The only other thing I think I would want to add, possibly for the benefit of the residents, is that your office is also a place other than like the Office of Community and Economic Development where people can get data.
Yeah.
Is that a correct
It is.
assessment? Not that
Uh,
that's your job, but I
right.
mean, um,
It is. I think we want to be a place where people can really access government. We want to be that doorway in, and we also want to know about what that data is really telling us. Honestly, openly, and transparently. I didn't mention it yet, but the Washtenaw Equity Partnership, which has 122 recommendations of how to change certain parts of the criminal justice system. One of those is about data in the data warehouse. And so we've been talking about how we implement that. And I only bring that up because I think that data and access to information is really, really important, and how we can actually be a conduit for people to understand what's really going on in county government. We want to play that role. And so I will say to folks, on our website, if you want to get a hold of me, my contact information is everywhere. But if you just Google or search for Washtenaw County Equity Office, it'll take you to our page, and there's a way to rent the MSSI vehicle, to learn about all the programs that we're doing, and to engage with our staff. So if you have ideas, concerns, questions, complaints, that's where you can go to get connected directly to us. And we'd love to hear from you, because that's really where we understand what we're missing and how government can get better is really from the people.
well, thank you. I hope this won't be the last time. This is the first year that I've done this. And I think it's been successful so far. And so, we will definitely have repeat appearances and update opportunities for anybody that we've spoken to. And so, if there's if there's ever a time that you feel like there is something information that you would like to get pushed out, um, additionally, outside of the normal ways that you share information, please let me know and we can schedule, another conversation.
Absolutely. Yes, I appreciate it. Anytime we can talk about the work is great. So yeah, I'd love to talk some more about it.
Okay. Thank you, Derrick.
Thank
And
you.
thanks to your staff. All right.